Thanks for having me here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no problem. Tell us a little bit about your story, and we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm a periodontist by trade, but now I am one of the partners in a private equity firm that invests in RV parks, and I'm teaching other doctors and high income earners about real estate and passive income. The reason why I do this because about 10 years after I started practicing, I was snow skiing in Colorado, and I fell and hurt my hand. And up until that point, you never question that you can't work until something happens. And that was my wake up call because my kids were young at that time. And, it's kind of hard to work without hands. What I do for a living is a dentist. So I was thinking, well, I'm operating very risky and I got to do something about it. And I started really taking a deep dive of what the wealthy people do. And I don't know how much you want to get into it in our episode, but I can I can go as deep as you want. But basically, started looking at what they were doing, and then I realized I wasn't doing any of that, and that's what really changed my trajectory.
So, how do you balance everything? Because I know doctors, they do long hours, and I know you're doing content also, like you have a YouTube channel, and you have your businesses. So, how do you juggle everything?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really helped. It would be hard if I was an employee. I think being self-employed, having my own practice really helps because I can pick and choose when I'm going to work. And currently, I'm only practicing 3 days a week. So I have 2 full days a week to coach doctors, to create content like this. Today I'm not seeing patients, and I do my podcast today. Go out and manage my real estate, but also you're probably going to laugh, but I also am able to create a good bit of content on the days that I do see patients in between patients because mainly we put most of our patients asleep to do work on them. So it usually takes 20 to 25 minutes for a patient to wake up, then put another one into the room, get them ready and put them to sleep. So during that time, every day where I have those breaks, I can come in and write blog articles or YouTube video scripts and things like that. So I'm able to work both in the practice and doing the content creation real estate too, when I'm seeing patients.
So, you were in debt before, and can you explain to us what happened and how did you get out of it?
Yeah, when I finished my training, I was about $300,000 in student loan debt, and I was supposed to join a group practice, but unfortunately, about 2 weeks before I finished my training, they pulled the deal out from under me. And they don't usually in school, medical school, dental school, law school, anything like that, they just teach you how to do your trade, to do your profession. They don't teach you how to start a business, how to run a business, and they don't teach you anything about money, which you would kind of think they would, but unfortunately they don't. So I had to learn all that on my own. And we were dead broke, about $300,000 in student loan debt. Back then, I was a big Dave Ramsey follower who, 20 plus years ago, he was about the only quote financial guy out there. Maybe there's a few others, but I followed his 7 baby steps. And I think that's a really good foundation for really anybody today, really focus on getting out of debt, especially the high interest debt, getting out of debt, how to start an emergency fund, how to have a budget, just the basic foundations, which again, they should be teaching this stuff to us in high school, but they don't. So I followed his path and eventually after about 7.5 years was able to pay off not only all of that student loan, but the first house that we had purchased as well.
What would you say to someone who's in debt and is trying to get out of debt? What would you say to them?
I would say do everything that you can. And I think it's even more important for somebody that makes a lot of money because they sometimes in their mind, they think, okay, well, I make a lot of money. I can always pay this off or whatever. And they don't. And as you know, as you get older, things get more expensive, things get more complicated, and they keep carrying this debt around. I'll coach doctors in their 60s and they still have student loan debt. They've just been carrying it around forever. And it's like, pay that off, get it out, get rid of it, or you're just going to be carrying it around with you for your entire life. So do everything that you can, get extra jobs, do side businesses, whatever, to get rid of that debt. And then you can focus all that extra money on building real wealth.
How's your network at the moment? And because I saw like you have an investor list. So how was the raising capital process for you?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
I said, how was the raising capital process for you? Because I heard that you have an investors list. So how was that process? Like, what's your network? How is your network right now?
Yeah, when I started when I got the deal pulled out from under me, and then I got hurt snow skiing. As I started learning all these different things online that were not taught, that the wealthy people, they invest in real estate, they have multiple income streams. That's when I started creating my content. I just started a blog. I took like a little online course, $300, and really looking back, that is probably the best decision I've ever made because it's the reason that you and I are talking right now. And as I started to educate people, then I got into real estate syndications, which are just passive investing through real estate. So where you don't have to deal with tenants, somebody else handles all that. It's more like a turnkey operation. So I was getting ready to invest in an apartment complex several years ago in Dallas, and the group knew I had a blog. They said, "Hey, look, do you have an email list?" I said, "Yeah, I got about 200 people on it." And they said, "Well, do you want to see if we do everything legal and make you a co-general partner? Do you want to see if any of those people want to invest alongside of you?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I took two of their emails that they sent out to their list and I changed it to make it sound like, it was coming from me. And I sent them out 48 hours apart. They contacted me and they said, "Okay, you know, between you sending out your emails and us sending out our emails to our list, we've raised enough capital so you don't have to send out any more emails." I said, "Okay." They said, "How long have you been raising capital?" I said, "What is that?" I said, "Well, what you just did, you just helped us raise capital. How long have you been doing it?" I said, "Never. It's the first time I've ever done it." And they said, "Wow, in 48 hours, you just raised $2.4 million." And I was like, "Holy cow, do what?" So that was actually the start of my raising capital experience and building a network, which now, that was years ago. Now that list has grown from maybe 200 people to about 3,500 people now, accredited investors. So now it's a lot easier to raise capital, but you have to go out and you got to find good deals. You have to give them good content. You've got to try to find ethical people to work with. And, many times it's hard to do in this day and age, but it can be done.
How's your team? Like, who do you have working with you at the moment? Like business partners or lawyers?
Yeah, I've got a real estate partner who actually is a real estate attorney, and him and I have built out a team. We've got about 50 people working for us, but this is for mainly managing our RV parks, which we have 24 right now with the it's called the Blue Metric Group. And we have a team of advisors and accountants and CFOs, and we've got a marketing team overseas that helps us run ads and do all of that stuff. But initially when we first started, it was just him and I, and and he didn't even have a list or anything, so we were just marketing to the list that I had to raise capital to buy that third RV park, the fourth one, the fifth one. Once we got to about park number five, that's when we really knew that we needed to start. We were hitting a roadblock and we really needed to start to expand and hire people because if we wouldn't have, it would have been really hard to continue to grow. But, I tell people if they want to do something, just start, just do something, and you never know where that's going to lead you.
Or how's the RV? Because you said that you have you bought some RV parks. How's that asset class?
It's I've invested in apartments, self-storage, mobile home parks, short-term rentals, and RV parks, and I really like the RV park space because it's the taxes are less, the insurance is much less compared to apartments. You have different tenants instead of, if you have an apartment, you got somebody that's renting from you month to month, right? Or their long-term lease. Whereas with an RV park, you have three types of tenants. You got the people that stay nightly that you can charge the most. You got people that work in the area, so they need to stay for like weeks or months at a time. And then you have like long-term people that'll stay there, kind of like an apartment. They'll stay there for years. And also you're able to, depending on your park, you're able to have multiple different sources of income versus an apartment. It's pretty much the rent. With RV park, you can do laundry. We've got some with an arcade. We've got some with ice machines, propane, golf cart rentals, cabins, tiny homes. So there's different incomes. So if the ideal situation would be to buy a park from somebody that's an older person that hadn't really done anything to the park, and you really don't have to raise the rents sometimes at all. You can just add on these different additional services and create. That's how we create value, immediately. The park that we just closed on this week in Shreveport, Louisiana. We bought it for like 6.4 million, and it appraised for 8.5 million, just from some of the different things that we were going to do with it that the other gentleman hadn't done with it. So for instance, he has an online auction. Well, he has this huge warehouse. He was storing all of his stuff that he puts online in auctions. Well, guess what? When he moves out of that warehouse, that would probably cost well over $1 million to build that warehouse. We're getting it as a part of this park. Well, now we're going to do boat and RV storage in there. So that's an extra, probably we figured up about $1 million in revenue just from that. So there's all kinds of different things that you can do with the parks versus, just having multifamily. You're kind of limited.
So from a financial standpoint, to get into that asset class, how much do you need to get in?
Well, you could either, I mean, you can go and buy one yourself. You can raise the money yourself. I mean, there's people online that are buying RV parks with no money. If you can raise capital, if you can get partners to come in with you. For our particular deals, for real estate syndication, you need to be an accredited investor, and you need to the minimum investment is typically $50,000. But you're talking about, if you went and bought a $1 million park, most of the banks would want you to put probably 20 to 30% down, two to $300,000. So this is a lot less expensive to get involved. Plus, you don't have the headaches of having to deal with anything because we manage it for you.
So with all the deals that you've made in the past, like whether it's in storage or the other asset class, what did you learn from all those experiences?
I learned that there is a lot of different syndicators out there, and the syndicators are the people that do everything for you. They buy the property, they manage it, they get the debt, they'll pay you your return, they sell it. And you can go online right now, and there's just a ton of syndicators, but there's only just a handful that are really good. And think about it, that's pretty much like anything in the world. There may be 50 dentists in your hometown, but when you boil it down to it, there may only be five or six that are really good. So the key is trying to find the best syndicators. And when I started out, that was my job. That I tried to do the best that I could. Did it work all the time? No. I lost money, unfortunately, and some of the investors lost money. That's just part of the process. And any real estate investment is a risk. And once I realized and learned enough to do it myself, that's when my partner and I started the company. So now we're the syndicator, so everything's on us. So we don't take that lightly, but we love what we do. We'd like to teach people first, so they understand what they're getting into. Unfortunately, people that invest with financial advisors, they don't even really tell them what they're doing. They just, you know, send them money every month. An investor would just send, oh yeah, I'll just send my advisor, $2,000 a month or whatever. And I say, well, what is he doing for you, or what investment? I don't know. And to me, that's not right. I mean, you're working hard your entire career, so you should know where your money's going and what it's doing for you, if you want to put it to work.
Going back on the RV, what is the return on those investments?
The way that the majority of our structures are set up is you get it from day one, you get a return. So let's just use $100,000 so I make the math easy. So if you were to invest $100,000 in one of our projects, we typically will hold the park for 5 to 7 years. So during that time period, we'll pay you what's called a preferred return. And that's been averaging about 8%. So we're paying you $8,000 a year over that 5 to 7 years. So typically that $8,000, that's passive income. We pay it quarterly. So you're getting about $2,000 every quarter. And with the way the tax benefits are, we get so much depreciation from the first few years of the RV park, it actually offsets that passive income. So literally you're not paying any taxes on that money. So you're getting basically tax-free or tax-deferred income. And then when we end up selling it, you get your initial investment back. So in this case, $100,000, plus you get to split the profit with us. And we try to set up our deals that our investors are in effect basically doubling their investment. So if you put 100 grand in, after 5 to 7 years, that $100,000 turns into $200,000 after it's all said and done.
What about the self-storage?
The self-storage that I've been a part of, most of those have been either sort of a newer development, or they have been where we've had to do a lot of renovations. So we really haven't been able to pay a return, which, we knew that going in, because we buy the property, people put their money in. Well, we're taking all that money and we're doing all the capital expenditures. We're doing the renovations. We're building it up. We're renovating it. Then we're getting tenants in it. And then after about 5 years, we're selling it. But again, those are also set up pretty similar to just about double an investor's money as well during that whole period.
What are some challenges that you've encountered during your journey?
I would say the biggest one, especially with apartments, which has gotten me into the RV parks, was the interest rates that went up about they had about 7 or 8 interest rate hikes, during COVID. And then also insurance and taxes. So for instance, there was one deal that we were in Dallas. It's like 200 unit apartment, and the insurance quadrupled in 1 year with no claims filed, anything. So I mean, can you kind of like if your house note is $2,000, and all of a sudden the bank calls you and goes, hey, just want to let you know your house payment's going up to $10,000 a month, and there's nothing you can do. So when that happens, that's why you're seeing a bunch of these apartments going underwater, going into foreclosure, because not only can they not make their payments, they certainly can't pay their investors the money. And they didn't do anything wrong. That's just situation. And that has happened time and time again, and we're seeing it now come to fruition. But that's why you're seeing more and more of these private equities focus on investing in RV parks and investing in mobile home parks, because think about it, when you have to pay insurance on a big apartment complex or a self-storage building, I mean, you got to insure that building, versus you got an RV park, it's just a bunch of concrete pads. You may have some structures there, but for the most part, if a hurricane comes or a bad storm comes, it could damage the apartment, but if it's coming at your RV park, you just tell the people to leave, and there's not a whole lot. I mean, there is some stuff to damage, but not near as much as like an apartment, which means that it's a lot less expensive to insure typically the average RV park versus an apartment complex. And it took me having to go through that and putting money in and losing money and going through those failures to learn that. And did I quit? No, I just pivoted and went a different direction, and I'm glad I did.
Do you have an exit strategy now from your practice to the real estate?
Yeah, I'm actually in the process right now of transitioning, and I think this is really important for people, especially people that want to retire early. Make sure you have something to retire to transition to. So I'm in the process of transitioning out of the practice to do the real estate full time, where we're doing acquisitions, where we're doing coaching, content creation, that sort of thing. So I'm not going to be sitting around the house doing nothing, but I'm going to be doing something totally different than what I originally trained for. And I'm really enjoying it. And I think that if somebody's out there listening, kind of on the fence whether they should retire or not, well, figure out what you like to do and then transition to that. And then even better, if you could take that and teach it to other people, you'll find a different purpose in your life than what you have now, what you currently have.
Are the people in your field like that are not invested in real estate? Are these people like inspired by what you're doing right now?
Yeah, and I get people that send me messages all the time, and I've actually have attracted more and more IT people, people working at these big companies like Google and Apple that make a. I didn't realize these people make a lot of money, and the thing that they don't like is most of their, I guess, their retirement or perks of working there is they get a lot of the. Let's say you work at Apple or Google, you get a lot of Apple or Google stock, and they get so much of that they don't want to keep doing that. They don't want to have all their eggs in one basket. They want to have something to to have like real estate, and they reach out to me because they want some passive income coming in. They want some other income streams besides their W-2 job, and then just having one stock. And they really appreciate that. So it really doesn't matter what you're in, what field you're in. If you only have one income stream coming in, it doesn't give you many options, because the way that most of the financial system set up is you have to work until you're like 60 before you can touch anything. And but if you have, let's say, five income streams coming in, then you got options. If you don't want to work until you're 60 or 70, you got options. And that's what I like. And I'm just giving people the option of doing that. It's not right for everybody, but if you want freedom and you want options and you want to enjoy life before you get too old, that's pretty much what I'm teaching.
Sometimes like going into that direction, there's a lot of challenges like on building wealth, sometimes people say a lot of things, it's easier said than done, and they want instant result. What would you have to say for that?
I mean, if you make a good income, if you make six figures a year, then and you get on a game plan, and we help people get on a game plan, you should be able to get to the point where work is optional no later than 10 years or less. And it's not a get rich quick thing. But when people start to question that, and I'll ask them, I say, well, what path are you on now? And most of the time it's, well, I've got to work until I'm 60. I said, well, there you go. You want to work for 30 years or 10? Now, I mean, I'm sure there are some people that get lucky and they hit it big on Bitcoin and things like that, which that's not what I teach, and that's not what I do. I'm simply sharing my journey that I've done. It's not right for everybody, but if you want to join it, I teach how to do it. I mean, most of the stuff I put on YouTube, like you had mentioned, it's free. I've got over 300 videos on YouTube, and pretty much everything that I learned outside of dentistry, what I'm teaching now, I've learned for free online. I mean, it's pretty incredible the amount of information, and then books. I read a lot of books, so I would recommend going out, finding some, and the way that I find books and YouTube videos is if I'm reading a book or if I see a podcast of people that I like and they reference a book or a podcast, I'll go read it or I'll watch that other podcast. And then, I just kind of follow what the wealthy people, what the successful people are doing, who they're listening to, what they're learning from. Why reinvent the wheel? Just do that and follow the path and you'll be good.
You were saying if someone has a high income, what about for those people who have a low income?
Then you got an income problem, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities in the country. I mean, literally every successful person, there's a I think there's a YouTube channel where a guy, he's like 22, 23. I think it's called the School of Hard Knocks. And he goes around the country and he interviews wealthy people on the street. He's like, hey, what do you do for a living? How much do you make? What are some lessons you've learned? I would say probably 95% of the people that he interviews and he asks them, have you ever been broke before? And they all say yes. So that just tells you that the majority of the people out there that have money, they didn't start off with money. They had a low income or they had no income. So I wouldn't let that be your determining factor at all. I mean, some of the wealthiest people I know are some of the least educated people I know. So don't let that hold you back if you don't have the resources or the education. They're one of the wealthiest people that I know. I don't think he made it past like the eighth grade. So it really doesn't matter. So just decide on what you want to do and go do it.
Where can people find you on social media or the internet?
Probably the easiest thing to do would be to go to my website, debtfreedoctor.com. And on there, there's a links to my YouTube channel and to the Instagram. And I'm more active on YouTube and Instagram because that's how I learn, by watching YouTube videos. So I'm taking most of the blog articles I write and I'm repurposing them into videos so people can learn from them and understand them a little bit easier.
I think in one of your videos, you were mentioning that you were using an AI tool to do that, to transfer your blog from a video. Which tool is that?
I use to do that. I will typically will take my blog article and copy and paste it into Chat GPT. And well, let me take a step back. AI is all about prompting. I'm not an AI expert by any means, but from the people that I've learned from, it's all about prompting. So what I did initially is somebody told me to take a lot of the things that I'm doing and putting it in initially and prompt it so it knows about me. It knows about who I am, what I do, the some of the articles that I've done, some of the videos I've done. So it learns my business. So then now that it knows my business, anytime that I give it an article, I'll say something like, hey, now that you understand my business and what I do and teach, take this article and help me to turn it into a 7 or 10 minute YouTube video script. And then I'll copy and paste it into ChatGPT. And if you just did it without doing that, I mean, it would still do it, but it's not going to do it near as well. And you're still going to have to change some things and prompt them some things, but that's typically how I do it. And then I also use it to help me with the thumbnail ideas, video description, that sort of thing. I mean, I still do a lot of stuff, but it's really cut down the time to do it. And once I get out of my practice, I'm actually going to, get somebody else's to do all that because I want to go around more and film at different RV parks and go out and meet people and do a lot of content creation and then just, send it to somebody and let them take care of all the editing and everything else. But that's what I'll be doing, in the future.